So when I was in university, I took this environmental studies class. I loved that class. It definitely had a lasting impact and probably changed the direction I was going in a lot of ways. But it was also one of the most depressing classes I had ever taken. I would leave that class every day with this overwhelming sense of doom, feeling pretty helpless. Given at the time I was working at an inbound customer service call center for the bank, which I think we could all agree nobody ever calls the bank to congratulate them on their great customer service, which may have contributed a little bit to the overwhelming sense of doom. But in all seriousness, I was never bad in school, but I wasn't at the top of my class. And what could I do to change the current state of our environment? Sadly, at that time, I had no answers. Fast forward several years, and despite living in a time where government officials claim climate change is a hoax, I feel more empowered and hopeful about the differences we can each make as individuals. In particular, differences we can make in the workplace. Now, for me, and for the examples that I'll be using, that's at a cocktail bar called Le Mal Nécessaire. Now, for those of you who have never been, Le Mal Nécessaire is a tiki-inspired cocktail bar located in Montreal's Chinatown. A bar that's designed to lure guests in to enjoy our fresh tropical concoctions with a cozy and inviting atmosphere. We serve drinks inside fresh pineapples and coconuts. We make all our juices are fresh pressed and make all of our syrups homemade. At any given time, we could have up to 25 different fresh pressed juices and homemade syrups. Essentially, if we can make it ourselves, we will. And so, some of you may or may not know this, but Montreal has actually turned into Canada's culinary destination. We actually have the second most bars and restaurants per capita in all of North America, coming right after New York City. So that paired with constant clientele trends changing, bars opening up weekly, and a list of outdated laws which are enforced, makes it extremely difficult for bars to succeed. Now, I'm not trying to say that bars are the outlier and that it's the hardest industry to work in, but what I am trying to say is, even though it is hard to succeed in a bar, it is possible to be environmentally sustainable. And I'll go even as far as saying being environmentally sustainable should actually be embedded into your business strategy. And so, I'd like to take a moment to ask you guys all to think about your jobs. And I'm going to apologize, I know it's the weekend, but what's one thing that you could change about your job right now that would make it a more environmentally sustainable establishment? Now, would that change involve spending a bunch of money? Would it involve investing a tremendous amount of time? Chances are the answer is yes, or more businesses would be doing it. Could you imagine walking into your boss's office and the conversation going something a little bit like this? Hey, I have this great idea. It involves spending a bunch of money, investing a bunch of time, but it's good for the environment. What do you think? Chances are things won't go the way you want them to. And so the trick is, it's no secret that every business's sole purpose is to make money. So the trick is to find a way to monetize or leverage these changes. And so find a way, or a great place to start, is to find a way to repurpose previously wasted items. And so that's exactly what we did. Now at Mal Nécessaire, what we do is we buy fresh pineapples, we core the inside, then we save the shell, we put it in the freezer, which is later used as a vessel for the cocktails. Then we juice the cores, which the juice, of course, is used as an ingredient in the cocktails. And then lastly, we pluck the leaves, which are used as a garnish for the drinks. Now, after this whole process, we would be left from pulp, from juicing the cores. And back then, we would just compost them. But we decided to find a way that we could repurpose the pulp. And so we did. So one of the ways we found to use it was shipping off some of our pulp to our sister bar, Bar Pamplemousse, where the chef creates a delicious cake. And I promise you, if you try this cake, you will be going back for seconds. There's no question. Another way is we create a pineapple leather or pineapple fruit roll-up, which is right over there. It looks great, and it tastes really good. And the last way is creating pineapple stalks or syrups. So a great example of this is a pineapple syrup we made with cane sugar, vanilla bean, and anise, which tastes absolutely delicious in a daiquiri. But that's not the only way we did this. We also started creating citrus stalks. Now, to explain to you guys basically what a citrus stalk is and how it's made, basically you take the husks of citrus which you juiced, you boil it down, add a few ingredients to the strain mix, and there you have it. An excellent substitute for citrus, especially when it's mixed with fresh pressed juice. And so we even, in blind cocktail taste tests, found that people preferred the mix of citrus stalk and fresh pressed juice over just fresh pressed juice. But that's not the only way you could do or find a way to repurpose things. If there's nothing you could find within your own business, look within neighboring businesses. And that's exactly what Bar Pelicano did, one of our sister bars. So they basically went to a neighborhood coffee shop, asked to grab some of their coffee grinds, and then infused them into some of the syrups they were making. Another thing that we're trying to do, but we haven't quite yet found a place, so if you guys know anyone, feel free to give them our contact information. But we're looking for a restaurant that uses chickpeas. And essentially, the liquid that you get inside canned chickpeas is called Aqua Fava. Now, Aqua Fava mimics the functional properties of egg whites when cooking. So if you want to create a meringue, macaroons, it's an excellent vegan option to do that. And so in cocktails, very often, let's say a cocktail that many of you may know, whiskey sour, is we use egg whites to emulsify and create a really nice texture in the cocktail. And so if we manage to find a restaurant that's throwing out their Aqua Fava, well, we'd be able to use it instead of using egg whites. Now, these aren't, just some of these changes that we've made have actually helped us cut the costs of making fresh pressed juices and homemade syrups by a substantial margin. And so those are some of the ways we made those changes, and it also helped us repurpose previously wasted items. But that's not the only way to leverage responsible decisions. So another way we did that was when we decided to start composting. When we decided to compost at first, it obviously added a cost to the business. But I'm lucky enough to work for some people that have the same vision as me, and we decided, you know what? Let's do it even though it adds a cost. It's the right thing to do. And after a few months of doing it, we figured, hey, you know what? Let's let our patrons know what we're all about. Let's post on our various social media accounts and let them know that we started composting. And to our surprise, we reached over 20,000 people on our various social media accounts. Now, to put you into context, we're a 70-seater bar in Chinatown in a basement. and so for us, the outpour of support from our patrons and even competitor bars it just basically made us realize that the cost was justified. And inadvertently, we had actually promoted the bar. And so this brings me to my next point. Not everybody works, some of us are students, and not everybody has the opportunity to be taken seriously at work or to be able to make decisions. So start with your own decisions. And I speak for the residents of Montreal, but compost. It's a free service. And if it's not composting, well, find a way to reuse, repurpose some of the items that you throw away at your house at the moment. Don't use plastic bottles, or whenever possible, try and avoid them. Any type of single-use plastic. We have perfectly usable, reusable bottles that you could buy pretty much everywhere now. And another thing you could do is to go spend your money in establishments that are making these changes. And I'm not just talking about bars or restaurants. This could be any establishment. It could be an art gallery, it could be a clothing store, whatever it is. But try and support people who have the same vision as you. It's like simple rules of supply and demand. If if businesses who make these changes are rewarded, well, there's no questions other businesses will follow. So that's one way to make that change happen. And another thing you could do, and this is really important, I think, is share your knowledge. Now, for us, and I mentioned this earlier, I'm no Elon Musk, but we all have a device in our pocket, probably right now, that gives us access to an endless supply of information. And so the citrus stock, actually, I was speaking about earlier, is a recipe we found online from the guys, their name is Trash Tiki, and basically they have a similar vision as we do, which is to go around teaching bars how to make environmental juices or environmentally sustainable juices and syrups. And so go online, see what you can find, search up recipes. And when it has to do with you, just a great example of repurposing something, you can go and every time you make a salad or you're cutting onions or whatever it is, you take all the husks or whatever's you would generally throw in the compost or garbage, hopefully compost, and throw it in a bag into the freezer. And then after that, pull it out when you want to make a vegetable stock, boil it down, and there you have it, a vegetable stock. You've saved money. So there's more than one ways of doing this. Now, the other thing that we realized about crowdsourcing information and spreading the knowledge, and particular for us at Le Mal Nécessaire, was that whenever we decided to make changes, when we implicated the staff in making these decisions, we realized that they felt a sense of responsibility for these changes to be successful. And so that's another great thing. And also, this is a great example. The whole straw situation right now, which is very, very talked about, I would say, in Montreal and elsewhere around the world. It's a great initiative, and it's brought a lot of light onto single-use plastics. And so, since this whole initiative started, there's many more options and alternatives to using plastic straws. Because, let's face it, I mean, maybe you guys know this, but people really want to drink out of straws for some unknown reason. And so now we actually have reusable metal straws, there's reusable plastic straws, there's compostable paper straws, there's hay straws, and even spaghetti straws. And this is all because people showed interest in this. And so for us, what we realized also was a lot of these changes only started happening when all four of our sister bars put our heads together for the same common goal, which is to reduce waste and be more environmentally sustainable. And so now we're actually working on a program called the Boomerang Initiative, which's sole goal is to challenge other bars and teach other bars how they can save money, basically. And yes, of course, it's helping the environment, and that's the bonus. But like I said before, sadly, a business's sole purpose is to make money. So if that's what we need to do to make these changes happen, then let's do it. Now, on that note, I'd like to leave you guys with a challenge, something that I'd be absolutely honored if you guys can do. Earlier, I asked you guys to think about one change that you guys can do at the place you work at that would make it a more environmentally sustainable establishment. Now, I'm going to ask you guys, try and figure out a way to monetize that. Try and figure a way to leverage that. And go to your boss with an idea that'll impress him. And don't be discouraged. I was lucky. I work with bosses that said yes to me right away, but I'm aware that that's not always the case. So maybe at first, you might not get what you want, but you might be the one to spark interest in other people you work with. You might be the one to lead the way, and eventually that change might happen. So I'd be absolutely honored if each one of you could try and do that. And if everyone just in this room did that, imagine all the changes that we can make. Thank you so much, and I hope you guys enjoyed the time.